morning, Charlottesville. Welcome to your CBS 6 News. I'm Julianna. Today's top story is about Kenneth White, a local of Flint, Michigan, who was killed in a tragic accident after a rock crashed through the windshield of his car and struck him on his head. The rock was reported to have been thrown onto the highway from a nearby overpass. White was only 32 years old and left behind a fiancée and a 5-year-old son. There were 5 perpetrators between the ages of 15 and 17, all of whom were charged with conspiracy to commit second-degree murder, and as of now are being tried as adults in court. Kyle Anger, the 17-year-old, is being held in jail until the trial, while the other teenagers are being held in the Regional Detention Center for Juveniles. Today we have 2 leading criminologists, Peter Lee and Sussie Owusu-Ansah, who will be discussing their different perspectives on the rising rates of juvenile delinquency through the lens of the White case. Welcome! So let me start by asking the first question. What do you think is causing our children to commit criminal behaviors such as throwing rocks at cars? And what effect does juvenile detention or even prison have on these young offenders?
To put it simply, social, environmental, and psychological factors all come into play when it comes to determining delinquency during adolescence.
Well, you see, I would have to disagree because what really leads a child to commit such a criminal act is more due to their personality. It's a matter of biology and criminal traits.
But biology doesn't explain why people are in prison.
In 2007, African American males had the highest recidivism rates in the country, with 60.13%, while Caucasians' recidivism rates were not as high at 52.38%. Certain traits make people more susceptible to misbehaving. Now, back to the study about the boys from Michigan. They have those same traits that make a criminal, such as a hooked nose or a huge jaw, but some of those traits could also be internal, like their blood.
That's outrageous. There's no way blood has to do with delinquency in any shape or form. It comes down to psychological and ecological factors. I'm not saying people with these traits are immediately delinquent. Rather, children that grow up in certain conditions are more at risk of having a run-in with the Department of Juvenile Justice. According to a study done in 2016, there are 3 factors that predicted juvenile delinquency. 1 was poverty, 2 was family instability, and 3 was mental health problems. In the study, 80% of individuals that met these 3 criteria were referred to the Department of Juvenile Justice for the first time, which shows there are strong predictors and indicators for juvenile delinquency. In addition, over 60% of the same group were arrested as adults. These resulting arrests are 3 times the rate of those individuals who did not meet the criteria.
Now, that's where you're wrong. I'm sure most teenagers know better than to throw things onto busy streets. The cause has to do with their genes. I follow the positivist method, in that social relations and events can be studied scientifically, which means I search for cause and effect relations, not superficial correlations. We should collect data rather than create abstract systems such as those you're suggesting.
There is no scientific evidence that this supports the theory of a criminal gene. You're making leaps and bounds with your argument. We have to take a step back and focus on their backgrounds. 3 factors that increase the risk of juvenile delinquency are negative reinforcement histories, negative social determinants, and negative individual determinants. For example, negative reinforcement histories include peer pressure or using delinquency for enjoyment or sort of escape from reality. Many children across the country suffer from these factors, so it is likely 1 or more of the teens accused in this case also face 1 or more of these factors.
I don't mean to intrude, but I think you're both making valid points, yet aren't seeing the bigger picture. The case of White is too recent to conclude from as of now. More information may still be discovered. However, with Flint, Michigan having one of the highest crime rates in the US, it seems even more likely that these children were negatively affected and influenced while growing up.
Delinquency is complex, and it's important to consider multiple theories. What I'm saying is we can't just look at where these teens grow up. There are thousands of teens who live in Michigan, maybe some of them neighbors to these 5 criminals, and most of them wouldn't have committed this act. It shouldn't matter where you live, but the genes you are made up with.
There is no criminal gene. Delinquency is a symptom and not a disease. The worst part is that you're labeling these teens as criminals before they have even been sentenced to prison or juvenile detention.
But there are certain genes or traits that when combined lead to more criminal behavior. Our genes dictate whether we become criminals, so there's no need to wait to label them as criminals.
I beg to differ. I think our environment has more to do with whether we commit a crime or follow the law.
Well, I'm sorry to have to cut this thrilling debate short, but we still have more to cover. I want to thank our 2 guests for sharing their views, and thank you all for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. Join us next time on CBS 6. This is Julianna Lee signing off.